Midtown Manhattan, 6:26 in the morning. Brian Thompson, the 50-year-old chief executive of United Healthcare, the largest private health insurer in the United States, is walking toward the New York Hilton Midtown. He is there for his company's annual investor conference. He is surrounded by people. He is in the middle of one of the most densely populated places on Earth, in broad daylight. A masked man approaches from behind. He raises a ghost pistol, a three-dimensionally printed firearm with no serial number, fitted with a homemade suppressor. Nobody on the street hears the shots. They only see Brian Thompson fall. The gunman walks calmly into Central Park, disappears. For 5 days, the New York Police Department, the FBI, and federal investigators deploy every resource they have. Drones, helicopters, hundreds of detectives. Nothing. Then, a McDonald's restaurant in Altoona, Pennsylvania. A staff member recognizes a face from the wanted posters, calls 911. An officer walks in and finds a young man eating a steak sandwich. His mask is lowered. He is 26 years old. His name is Luigi Mangione. He is an Ivy League graduate from a wealthy Maryland family. He has a data engineering degree from the University of Pennsylvania. This is Shadow Files, the complete crime documentary of the case that made America confront what it actually thinks about justice. The case that made a killer into a folk hero, and the criminal psychology question that nobody, not the courts, not the media, not the millions who followed every detail, has been able to stop asking. Before this becomes a case analysis, before the criminal psychology, the ghost gun, the manifesto, the criminal mind behind the planning, we need to talk about Brian Thompson, because this true crime story begins with a real person who was killed on a real street in front of real witnesses. Brian Thompson was 50 years old. He was the CEO of United Healthcare, a division of United Health Group, the largest private health insurer in the United States by revenue. He had worked his way to the top of one of the most powerful corporations in America. He was a husband. He had 2 sons. The reaction to his murder shocked many observers. Within hours of the killing, social media platforms were flooded, not with grief, but with something closer to celebration. Comments that called the killing justified, that called Thompson a symbol of a system that had harmed millions, that treated the unidentified gunman as a hero. A December 2024 poll of college students found that 45% sympathized more with the suspect than with Thompson. 17% sympathized with Thompson. This reaction does not belong in a crime files analysis as an endorsement of violence. It belongs here as a fact, because understanding this case analysis, this investigation, this criminal psychology, requires understanding why a murder of a corporate executive became a cultural referendum. That is the hidden case at the center of this story. This Brian Thompson was not a symbol. He was a person. He had a family. He was walking to a work meeting, and he was killed. That is where this unsolved moral question, which the courts are still working through, begins. The crime documentary evidence in this case is a study in criminal psychology and premeditation. What Luigi Mangione allegedly did was not an act of impulse. This was case analysis made physical, a hidden case executed in plain sight. November 24, 2024, 10 days before the shooting. Surveillance cameras at the Port Authority bus terminal capture a man arriving by bus at 9 in the evening. He checks into a youth hostel in Upper Manhattan under the name Mark Rosario. False name, cash payment, mask on. That is not someone in crisis. That is criminal psychology at work. That is intention. He stayed for 10 days. On the morning of December 4th, he left the hostel at 5:34, rode an electric bicycle through the pre-dawn city, stopped at a Starbucks at 6:15, ordered a water bottle and granola bars, which he later discarded, arrived outside the Hilton before 6:35, and waited, in the cold, patient, certain, a man who had already decided. The weapon was a three-dimensionally printed ghost pistol, no serial number, no registration, untraceable. He had built it himself, including the homemade suppressor. That is why nobody on that busy Manhattan sidewalk heard the shots. The murder weapon was a crime files case study in avoiding detection. People walked past Brian Thompson as he fell and did not know it had happened. After the shooting, he escaped through Central Park, discarded his outer layers, and vanished into the city. 5 days, the full force of New York and federal law enforcement, nothing. Then, Altoona, Pennsylvania. A McDonald's employee recognized him from wanted posters, called 911. An officer 6 months out of the academy walked in and knew. In his backpack, the ghost gun, a suppressor, forged identity documents, and a red notebook. In the red notebook found in Mangione's backpack and in a separate 262-word handwritten document, investigators believe they found the criminal mind behind the killing. Prosecutors call it a manifesto. The defense calls that label prejudicial. The judge has not yet ruled on whether it's admissible. What the documents reportedly contain is a case analysis of the American health insurance industry, written in the register of dark psychology turned into ideology. The language describes healthcare executives as parasites. It states that it had to be done. It uses the phrase, "Frankly, these parasites had it coming." Investigators confirmed that Mangione was never insured by United Healthcare. His grievance was not personal, it was ideological. A criminal psychology rooted in a worldview, not a personal claim denial. Police believe he saw himself as a hero of sorts who had finally decided to act. They expressed concern that the crime story could inspire imitation. The shell casings found at the scene were engraved with the words delay, deny, depose, a reference to a phrase critics use to describe how insurance companies avoid paying legitimate claims. This was not random, this was symbolic, a case file written in spent brass. His Goodreads account showed that he had read the Unabomber's manifesto and written that it was prescient. He was disappointed when media compared him to Ted Kaczynski. In prison, he recommended Aldous Huxley to a corrections officer and discussed George Orwell. This is the hidden case the criminal psychology community is still working through. A man who read widely, planned meticulously, and concluded that targeted assassination was a reasonable political act. Whether that thinking constitutes terrorism is a question the courts have already partially answered. A New York judge dismissed the terrorism charges in September 2025, ruling that killing one individual did not meet the statutory definition of intending to intimidate a civilian population. Every true crime story asks, who did this? This crime story makes that question harder than most. Luigi Mangione was born in 1998 into a wealthy Maryland family. Country clubs, nursing homes, a radio station, significant real estate. He graduated from the University of Pennsylvania in 2020 with bachelor's and master's degrees in computer engineering. He worked as a data engineer at TrueCar, a car buying platform. By every external measure, privileged background, Ivy League education, professional career, he was a success story. Then, something shifted. In 2023, he left his job. He was dealing with debilitating back pain that required surgery. He moved to Hawaii. His social media presence, which had been active and normal, abruptly went silent in June 2024. He stopped communicating with friends and family. His mother filed a missing persons report on November 18, 2024, 16 days before the Thompson killing. He was, investigators believe, increasingly radicalized by his reading and his isolation, a criminal mind forming in the dark psychology between physical pain, ideological literature, and a growing conviction that the systems around you were not just corrupt, but evil. The recent rising interest in ghost guns concerns us. Because they are a major problem for us, it's difficult to trace. The writings that were found with him, the manifesto if you will, it's a